Hello and welcome to episode number 2 of the Nintendo Jump Podcast. We are a weekly discussion podcast created for Nintendo gamers by Nintendo gamers. My name is Daryl, and today I am again joined by Sergio.
Hello, everybody.
And Kevin.
What's good, everybody?
How you guys feeling? Number 2, huh?
It's you know what? It's getting out the jitters. I think this is gonna be hopefully it'll be a much better one. But, you can only get better as the number of podcasts you do. So I think I'm ready to get started. I think we got some really good games to talk about. So let's get started.
All right. So for this week's episode, we are going to take a look at the past year and 4 months-ish since the Nintendo Switch released. Specifically, we're going to have a discussion about what we consider to be like the must-play games on the system that have released so far. So how this is going to work, we've each prepared 3 games to discuss, and we'll go around kind of in a round-robin style to talk about why we consider each game a must-play. Whether it's a must-play specific to the system or just a must-play in general, among the literal hundreds of games available for sale on the system.
Right.
It's a little hard to determine what the good ones are. So that's what we're trying to list. So, one ground rule before we get started. Zelda Breath of the Wild, Mario Odyssey, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, and Splatoon 2 are off the table for this discussion. If you're listening to this, you should already know that those games are fantastic, and you should consider those games absolutely have the Nintendo Jump Podcast seal of approval. Please go pick them up.
Boom!
So,
gotta get them.
Absolutely. So, without further ado, let's go with, hey, Kevin, you want to kick us off this week?
Yeah, let's do it. I got my first one down the list. We're gonna start with Overcooked. As if you're not familiar with Overcooked, it is a multiplayer cooking game where you get to help each other create recipes and send them to the area where you can serve them, and it's basically like a frenzy kitchen game. It is super fun. It's one of those team building games where you're able to, it's one of those team building games where it boils down to just a couple controls. You can obviously move your character and also be able to chop things and be able to plate things. So chop things, plate things, cook things, deep fry things later on. So yeah, it's have you guys played before?
Yeah, we had a little local meetup of friends. You were there. It was one of the meetups that we have.
Yep.
And a friend of ours, Monty, he has it as well. And we played it 4 players, and it was a lot of fun and really funny. There's a lot of things that can happen in the kitchen, and there's a lot of very unique and really out there circumstances, like you're cooking on a set of trucks that are moving and you have to jump between one and the other. Like, it gets really crazy, but it's a lot of fun, and it encourages teamwork and communication, and it's, like I said, it's fun and funny. And yeah, it's a great game, definitely.
It is, yeah. Oh, good.
What I love about it is just how simple the controls are. I think that the game really personifies, more so than most, especially third-party games, it personifies what the Switch is trying to be, right? It's trying to be a system that you can break off one of the controllers, hand to somebody else, play a fun game that maybe this person's never played before, and it's this crazy cooking game. But everything is done with the A button, the X button, and if you want to get there quicker, you hit the B button. That's it. That's the controls. And joystick movement. But I love how this game interacts with the system. I love that they brought it on the system. I think this is an excellent choice.
Yeah, most definitely. It's like you mentioned, it's easy to pick up and play, but at the same time, it can get somewhat stressful when you're trying to work as a team. That's where all the magic comes in with the fun and trying to, be the most efficient and trying to get all the recipes and dishes out. It's Yeah, and they're gonna have Overcooked 2 in August. I actually played it with my friends yesterday, and we had one of my friends who he was just messing around with the fire extinguisher, trying to just quote unquote be helpful, but not really. And I was like, oh no, oh man, you gotta plate the dish. I was like, no, I mean,
There's a unique amount of stress with this game. That it's unlike most games out there where like you will sit down for a friendly game with friends or family, and you'll have a good time, and it'll be great, and then you'll catch yourself in the middle of your PlayStation just saying, no, I don't care, grab the tomatoes, grab them. Just the way the game adds stress, and one of the main ways it does is through just the craziest kitchens you have ever seen. Like these are not, for the most part, standard kitchens to cook in.
Right.
Sergio, you remember a couple of the different stages that you can play on?
I just remember the one with the trucks. That one really stuck with me. I think you also play one on a ship, so you have to deal with the waves moving the everything around. Yeah.
hmm
Yeah, the one on the trucks, the kitchen is actually split into two. On half of it's on each truck, and those trucks
Right.
are moving away from each other at various times, and you cannot cross the gap. So if you've got on that one, I think you're cooking hamburgers. If you've got your meat cooking on one of the trucks, and all the players end up on the other one, then that meat starts burning, and it's frantic and hilarious. It really, really is.
Yeah. 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 It's one of those relationship or friendship testers also.
For
Yeah,
sure.
most definitely. I think this also could be a good game for good team building too. So if you're working with coworkers and maybe you guys want to have a more uh, well, quote unquote relaxing way to de-stress, you can uh, you know play Overcooked and then get back that stress and just try to work together as a team. I think it'll be really good. It's just one of those team building games that I think that um, every Switch owner should have, because you never know when you'll have some friends that you can play with and be able to just work together and hopefully get those 3 stars. Because every level that you played, it's comprised of how many how much you can score, and then depending on how well you do, you get 1, 2, or 3 stars. So that's another level of stress. That
Yeah, there's a lot of levels too.
hmm
I was actually
Right.
impressed by the amount of content that the game actually has.
Right. And like Kevin said, we are getting Overcooked too, and the biggest feature that one is introducing is online play, which is great because
yeah.
we'll be able to play online and we can use something like Discord for voice chat. But that doesn't necessarily mean that Overcooked 1 should be overlooked. Because if you find it on sale, for example, and if you know you're gonna find yourself in situations in for local play, or if you live with somebody or a group of people that you can play with constantly, yeah, definitely give it a shot. Especially, like I said, it might go on sale once Overcooked 2 is out.
Yeah, definitely. Get both. Definitely get the first one and the second one when it comes out. It's I would say these are must-play games. And also on the Nintendo Treehouse, they showed some more footage of gameplay and stuff, and it just for Overcooked 2, and it does look really good. There's one level where the kitchen is in the air and they're falling from the sky like in a hot air balloon, and it's
Oh,
yeah, they're gonna fall, and then at some point boom, and then like they're in a sushi restaurant. So it's like it's pretty I'd say it's pretty it's multi-dimensional. There's it's
right.
a lot of fun and highly recommended. So I think it's definitely a game that you cannot miss.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
All right. Moving on. Sergio, what's your first game?
My three games happen to be games that are out on other systems, but I think the Switch versions, they might be arguably considered the better versions or at least on par with the others. And the first game on my list is Rocket League. I mean,
Yes.
we're pretty
Wow.
big fans of that game. And for those not familiar, basically it's just soccer with cars.
Hmm.
And you control a car, and there's a lot of options. You can play two versus two, three versus three, or even four versus four. And so you're on your team against another team, and just basically 5 minute matches of soccer.
Hmm.
There's other modes. Honestly, I haven't even played them because the main mode is just so crazy. And by playing two versus two or three versus three, that's already like a mode on itself. They're very different. But yeah, it's very frantic, very fun, and it's one of those games that the more you play, the better you get at it, and the more you want to keep playing and improving, because you see when you fight or when you play against people that are much better, you can see them flying on the stage and pulling off crazy moves that you're like, oh, I want to learn to do that. I want to keep playing until I can do that. So it encourages you to keep playing. It's a lot of fun.
Well, it's one of those games that some of the great competitive games, in my opinion, you can kind of approach on multiple levels. So like you, if you think back to even like something like Street Fighter or Smash Brothers or something like that, two utter beginners at the game can have fun with it. Two professional level players can have fun with it. And anywhere in between can have fun with it. You can have fun over skill gaps, just through different rule sets, different ways of play. Rocket League kind of has that. So it kind of has that as you're learning, it is a good game. So you don't feel like you're really missing out. Now, I mean, don't get me wrong. Sometimes you'll get queued with somebody who's just extremely good at the
Yeah.
game, and that's that's at least a learning experience, right? But
Right.
then you move on, and you're matched with other people, closer to your skill level, and it's a really fun game. I'm surprised at how deep it is.
Yeah, just referring back to what you said about matchmaking, I think they do a pretty good job overall matchmaking against people who are around the same skill level. And I think another thing that I really like about this game is also uh, the skin customization. You're able to customize your car with different skins that you can acquire whilst playing. You can unlock crates uh, and there are certain events where you can get decryptors, which are pretty much the keys to those crates, and be able to unlock even super rare stuff. And it's just there's just a world of customization in terms of that. And and there's different kind of cars too. They've also I like the fact that they have incorporated some of the well-known franchises in the world, like Fast and Furious. You got Superman, you got Batman. All those things that people are very familiar with. And yeah, I just a really good time. I know that for us, we have a lot of fun playing with each other, against each other. A lot of laughs, and yeah, it's just I played on the PS4 before, and it was fun then, and it's just more accessible now because it's on the Switch and I can play on the go. And yeah, I think it's like Overcooked. It is a must play for the Switch. So
Yeah, so to be clear on something, Rocket League does have loot crates, which I know is kind of a bad word in the industry right now. I
right.
do want to say though that everything that you get from a loot crate is a cosmetic item.
Hmm.
So if you really care about the game, you want to make your car the coolest looking car in the world, you can, uh, but you don't have to. So all the cars have the same exact acceleration and top speed. They
Hmm.
vary a little bit in their hitboxes and turning radius,
Right.
and that is pretty much the only difference. Also, one of the best cars in the game is literally the first one you have.
Yeah,
So
it's.
there's nothing required. And I also want to say this is an amazing game for $20.
Oh yeah,
On
totally
its
worth it.
base price. So you're getting a lot for that money. So I think for the most part, people have treated them kind of friendly with the loot boxes and things like that, and I think they should. I think that this is the right way to handle that kind of situation.
Right.
Hmm.
And another good thing about Rocket League is that there's always somebody to play against because it has crossplay. I think so far the only one that is not part of it is the PlayStation environment, and that's their choice.
Mm.
But yeah, it has crossplay and it has, like you said, there's loot crates, but even a lot of those items that you use to customize your car, you just get them by playing. So
Yeah, pretty much.
yeah, it encourages you to keep playing and having fun.
Yeah, that's a great game.
Hmm.
So I guess I'm up, and I'm gonna start with the only actual retail game on my list, and that is Rayman Legends Definitive Edition.
Mm.
So I wavered a lot on what game to actually include on this one. Came down to this versus Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, now with new funky mode. Uh, to be clear, both of those games are fantastic,
Mm.
and both of those games are among the best two-dimensional platformer games ever, and I honestly believe that. But I can only include 3 games, so I'm going to talk about Rayman. The reason I chose this over Donkey Kong is Rayman has full 4-player co-op play, and it's a cheaper game right now, so you can frequently find it on sale for $20, which I think is an amazing price for this game.
Right.
There's just a
Hmm.
lot in there. So have you guys played this?
I have not personally, so I'm not, and to be honest, I'm not too familiar with the Rayman series. I have played a little bit on PlayStation, but unfortunately, I'm not as familiar. But what I guess what's a good summary of what Rayman's all about?
Well, so as a series, it's kind of deviated from what it is over the years, but I'm just going to talk about this game for now.
Sure.
So this game is a very, very polished 2D platformer, with slightly floatier physics than you would find in, say, a Mario game. Like you do have a hover, and you have some attacks and things, and it doesn't take itself overly seriously. So the attacks are all like, you throw a punch and your fist gets gigantic, and the enemies are all funny, and the way that you know the way that you send them off flying or anything is really funny the way they actually do it. So it never really takes itself too seriously. That said, the art style is phenomenal. It's The game is running on I think it's called the UbiArt engine, which is
Yes.
an
Hmm.
engine that Ubisoft actually created. That kind of gives it this almost this painted watercolor look at times, which really really translates well to the higher definition. It's a beautiful game. The sound and music is really really good as well, and overall, just the levels are fun. Like, so when I play a platformer, one, I do like a challenge. It's definitely an easier game than, say, a Donkey Kong, or one that I'm going to talk about in a minute.
Hmm.
But it's it's just a fun game to play, and I will say there's a free demo out there if you want to try it. One of the stages in the demo showcases my favorite type of stage in this game, which there's a handful of them, but it is a stage that you play completely with the music running in the background. So
Yes.
when I say that, the actions that you're taking in the stage, like the enemies that you're attacking or the jumps you're making, are timed with the music perfectly, and the music is funny. So the music that they've chosen for it is, it's various levels of, hey, I've heard that before, but this is done in a different way. The one in the demo is actually, if you're familiar with the song Black Betty, uh, it's got the Rayman characters singing that, and you're playing the entire level to that, jumping on the beats, punching enemies on the beats. It's incredible. I really recommend checking out the demo just for that, and you'll really get a good idea what the game's about. Sergio, have you played this before?
Yes, I played it back when it was on the PS4. I didn't get too much into it. I think another game came out and that kind of distracted me from it. But honestly, I've been tempted to get this one on the Switch only because I agree with you completely. It's a great game, and those stages are awesome. And just even the regular non-music based stages, they're so good. The platform is it's so refined. It's almost a Nintendo quality, I would say. It's very it feels great and it controls great and there's a lot of challenges and every stage plays different or has different mechanics or events going on. Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
I guess I'll add this to my ever-growing backlog. So, I mean, it sounds pretty good.
Y- yeah, you'll never escape that backlog. But
Yeah.
I, of all the games on Switch, this is one that I would absolutely recommend, especially at its current price point.
Mm.
Uh, this is an upgrade of a game on Wii U, actually. But then it was ported over to Xbox and PS4, I believe, and now it's on Switch. So
Right.
it's been around. It's also a sequel to the game Rayman Origins, but it's one of those sequels that it actually includes most of the levels from Origins in it as well. So the actual
Right.
amount of content here, the number of stages is amazing. It's there's
Mm.
a lot of time here for the money, and I think it's a lot of fun while you're experiencing it.
Awesome. That sounds great.
Okay, let's go back over to Kevin. What's your number two?
My number two, here we go. My number two is going to be Golf Story. Golf Story is a role-playing sports adventure video game uh, developed by Sidebar Games, and it's exclusively on the Nintendo Switch. It is one of my favorite games to play on the Switch. Uh, it pretty much follows this guy who uh, pretty much wants to be a professional golfer, and he goes through all these scenarios through 8 different places, and basically pretty much he solves problems by playing golf. He goes around and tries to uh, just challenge people to play golf, and or like I said, solve problems. And just it's a really fun golf game. The mechanics are pretty sound. If you played games before like Mario Golf and all that, it's up there. And uh, the dialogue is super good. I liked how they people are funny. Some of them are funny, some of them are corny, a bit sarcastic. There's even one scene I remember where there's a bunch of these old people. They're okay. So it's like this pond area, and then there's a bunch of old people on one side, and some of these like people with bandanas and kind of look like rappers and gangsters on the other side, and they're having a rap battle, and there's one particular okay, so there's one line where the old guy's like, "Scores count, bro. Listen, won't matter what you've driven when your par putts are miracles, mind given." I was like, "Oh dang!" Like, it's a pretty good dialogue. Like, I did not expect that in a game
No,
like this.
the game is full of that kind of thing. It's really, really funny. Like I
Yeah,
was talking
yeah,
about Rayman being funny, and that's kind of a slapstick. This is super funny on a bunch of different levels.
yeah. It's just there's just so much like the dialogue is just memorable, just like that one, and
Yeah.
I think, and it's interesting because like a lot of the people that you meet along the way, like they either hate you or they just want to challenge you and pretty much put you down. But like with just gotta show how good you are at golf and put them in their place. So I think it's there's it's a little bit the underdog story, and I think it's just a game
Right.
that people can relate to on different levels, and y- yeah, that's Sergio. What do you think about Golf Story?
Oh yeah, it's awesome. I heard it described. It's commonly described as Earthbound meets golf, and I
Right.
think that's a great way to describe it. In many ways, like the graphics, the story, how silly the story can be, even the music, it's really good. And like you said, it's really funny in the golf mechanics, which is what you want
Mm-hmm.
to stand out. They work, and they're very fun to play. Oh, and this game happens to be one that is coming as a physical cartridge,
That's
thanks
right.
to limited run games.
Yeah, if I didn't already have it, I'd be tempted on that one.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, what I liked, there's a couple things that really stood out to me about this game. One is, so if you've played like a Game Boy or Game Boy Advance Mario Golf game, you're really on the right track on what to expect in terms of gameplay and how it actually progresses. You do kind of level up through, you get different clubs that you can use that are all have different powers and skills and things like that. But so it's an RPG, so you're talking to a lot of characters over the course of the game, and what they've done, it's really super clever, and I'm not sure why we haven't really seen it before, but they've done a lot of work with the text boxes, which I know sounds extremely boring, but like if somebody says something that's angry or they're feeling self-conscious or they are nervous or scared or happy or exuberant or whatever, they are able to show that just by the text box doing funny little things. Like the text box
Yes.
itself will be like
Mm.
all jiggly if they're nervous, or when they're kind of saying something like oh, I could have done that better, the thing will kind of tilt sideways a little
Yeah,
bit.
right.
Mm.
And that's all tied with the HD Rumble as well, so you actually feel that too. It's the dumbest sounding feature in the world, but when you're actually playing it, it brings you into the game, and it's just almost it's hitting you on a different level. Like
Yes.
Mhm.
I don't know exactly how they did that, and I don't know exactly why other people have not done that, but it's fantastic.
Yeah, that's a
I
nice
can't-
touch. It's
I wish I could explain that better. It's hard until you you actually check out some videos on it. You'll see kind of what I'm talking about. But the sound effect mixed with the rumble that occurs with those little text box effects is really, really funny. The other thing is some of the characters, like you guys were kind of touching on it, some of the characters are just extremely funny to me. And some of them, like Kevin said, they're kind of corny in their own way. It's kind of a chuckle for me, whatever. But some of them are just so in their character, and they're so what they're supposed to be, that it's fantastic. So really early on, you meet this other golf student that you get in an early tournament with, and this kid thinks he is just amazing. He
Yeah.
thinks his swing is so much better than your swing, which, by the way, people trash your swing the entire
Oh,
game.
man.
Like, you can hit a hole in one and they'll tell you your form was bad. But anyways, this kid thinks he's amazing, and when you're playing in a tournament against him, like, he'll hit it so far off the mark, like it'll wind up in the swamp way away from the hole, and it'll zoom back to him, and he'll say something like "as intended." And it's just like
Like, what?
it's the stupidest thing, because everybody knows that person, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
they've put that person in this game, and that worked really well. Another good standout is one of the later tournaments. I don't want to spoil much, but this dude, he hits shots that should not work, but somehow they end up ricocheting off things and winding up in the hole all of a sudden. And that playing that is just it's a visual joke. So it's just, I love the game. I think this is an excellent choice.
Yes.
Yeah, it's definitely a must play, and yeah, like as you mentioned, it's just very well rounded from the dialogue, the way they touched like you touched upon before, how just those little those details of how the box can jiggle a little bit depending on what the character's feeling. I mean, I think it's just it's a really nice touch, and yeah, has a stamp of approval in my book. So
Nice.
Awesome. Sergio, number 2.
let's go.
Yes, my second game is sort of kind of cheating in a way because it's 2 games in one. But that's the game. That's the way it was designed. And to be honest, I'm only thinking of the first game since it's the only one that I played. But I am talking about Resident Evil Revelations, which comes with Part 1 and Part 2.
Ooh, okay.
There we go.
It just so happens that when you buy the game, you can play Part 1 right out of the cartridge, or in Part 2 is actually a download. So just keep that in mind. But these games have been around since 2012, and they have been on all the major consoles. And actually, Resident Evil Revelations Part 1 was originally on the 3DS. I'm curious if either of you has played either of these games?
I have not, but I've heard nothing but good things about them.
Right, and the reason being is because they came out right after Resident Evil 5, which was the starting point of the series when it started to go more into the action route instead of the survival horror that it was known for. So in a way, Revelations 1 was a return to form. and what a return it was. It was really good. Even on the 3DS, not to dismiss it for being a portable, but you could tell it was a fully fledged Resident Evil game on a portable back then. That was amazing. And the fact that you can play it on the Switch and get both games in one, it's really good.
It's awesome. Personally, for me, I haven't really played the series as much, but I have been the witness of two of my housemates back in college who would play so much of Resident Evil 5, and they'll play until the sun comes up. And I remember one time where they would just play, and then they'll finally get the platinum trophy on PS3, and then we'll just we'll celebrate by going to McDonald's and then just having breakfast. And because well, okay, at the same time, while I was sword watching, I was playing uh, Dragon Quest 6 on my Nintendo DS. So I was like,
Oh,
okay,
nice.
yeah. So that was just kind of like, okay, I'll play something, and I'll pause and watch what they're playing. It was pretty cool, and
Those are
yeah,
amazingly different games.
yeah, they are.
Like, I'm having trouble coming up with two more separate looking games.
It was just like I don't know. I think at the time, uh, it, they asked me if I'm down to watch. I'm like, yeah, sure, but can I play my Dragon Quest 6? I was like, yeah, sure. It's like, all right, so I'll just be playing a little bit. Take a break after 20 minutes each time. Then watch them play a little bit, then come back, and it was just like back and forth, and just watching them till like 6 o'clock in the morning. 6 o'clock in the morning, where they got to play them. They're like celebrating, but they can't be too loud because our housemates are still sleeping. So
Nice.
that was one of my favorite experiences, even though I technically did not play Resident Evil 5. But like both of you guys said, I've heard nothing but good things about the series. So it's definitely worth playing, even from someone who watched people play. So
So one of the really
Nice.
cool things that I've heard about the game, and number two as well, is the raid mode, which is like what I've heard it told as is kind of a co-op uh, survival, more a little more actiony. Have you played that much?
I haven't, but you describe it perfectly. And that's what it is. So it's kind of the Resident Evil horror action, but pretty hectic in multiplayer, and you can even play it online. So it's definitely one of the key features of both games actually.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of like a mercenaries mode from one of the other games.
Yes.
Similar idea, at least.
mm,
Right, right, right. And the thing about these games, more so part one, is that it's a very good combination of classic survival horror, when it's only you and a couple of zombies and you don't know when they're gonna come at you, and in crazy action-packed scenes with machine guns and tons of enemies at once. I think part two is even more so a return to classic series where it's not so much action-based. And I've heard it both ways that people like part two more than part one, but either way, both games are really good. And Capcom took a lot of care in this port. You can actually play using two Joy-Cons with motion controls, which is amazing.
Oh wow, I did not
it's
know that
awesome.
actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, that actually makes me more likely to pick it up.
Yeah, they're both very good. They both have good stories, classic Resident Evil characters, and like I said, a return to form in a classic Resident Evil action.
Mm.
That sounds awesome. Okay, I'm gonna jump on my number two, which m- my number two is a game that a lot of people haven't heard of. It's actually called Steradin Binary Stars. Either of you guys played this by chance?
No, I haven't even heard of it.
Yeah, so
I
let me actually spell it because it's a weird title. It's Steredenn.
hmm.
Kevin, have you touched it ever?
I personally have not, but I heard you talked about it a bit before, and I know you're a big fan of those sort of is it shmups? Is this shmups?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
there we go,
So
shmups. Yeah.
it's a Stereodin is a horizontal side-scrolling shoot 'em up game.
Mm-hmm.
So think it's the same genre as games like Gradius or R-Type, or even if you get into like Ikaruga or
Yes.
Strikers 1945, that
Mm-hmm.
genre, right? So you're
Yeah.
in this spaceship and you're traveling towards the right of the screen, and the basic core of the genre is you have upgradable weapons. There's waves of enemies coming at you. There's a lot of bullets around you that you have to avoid. Typically, it's in the series. It's you get shot once and you explode. You lose a life. This is going back even to arcades. So these are very very classic quarter muncher type
Oh.
games, right?
Mm.
So Steriden, I actually asked on Reddit a while back because I noticed a lot of the shoot 'em up style games were coming to Switch. So all the ones that I just mentioned, for the most part, I think we're still missing Gradius and R-Type, but we do have Ikarugo now. We do have Strikers and a bunch of Neo Geo games. So I asked
Right.
a question. I was like, "Hey, what is the best shoot 'em up on the system?" And one person recommended this. I looked up a YouTube play video of it and went and bought it instantly. Like, it is
Mm.
amazing. So the actual game, if you've ever played something like Gradius 3, it almost feels like a modern upgrade of that game. So it is a side-scrolling shoot 'em up game with roguelite elements, which means basically every run is going to be randomized a little bit different. You're going to have different weapons. There's going to be different enemies, different enemy formations, different things to attack, different bosses at the end of the levels. There's also 5 playable ships that all play extremely differently and have their own strengths and such. So the problem with something like playing Gradius or Strikers or something now is once you memorize it, it's done. Like, you memorize it, and if you have the skill to actually pull it off, the next time you play it, it's going to be exactly the same. You're still going to have the skill to pull it off. You're still going to get through it and be fine. This game is very different in that every run is extremely different. Like, the first run, you could get this laser weapon that wipes out half the screen. The next run, you might get a saw blade that is actually a melee attack, and you go up and you have to get kind of uncomfortably close to enemies. There's dozens and dozens of weapons in the game. Like, I didn't actually look it up, but there's a crazy number of different weapons and configurations and such that it can throw at you, and it's all randomized. So when you pick up
Nice.
the game and you start playing it, you really don't know what you're gonna get, and I love that. I to me that's really exciting because it feels like kind of a fresh game with the same mechanics. So there's a bunch of different stages, and it kind of breaks tradition in that you can take a few hits. You actually have a shield.
Oh,
So
nice.
yeah, which refills after each stage. So I want to say it's slightly more forgiving. That said, it's really hard. Like,
Hmm.
it takes that opportunity to just be like, well, okay, I'm gonna throw a ton of lasers at you. um, it's not an easy game at all. There's a number of different stages. They ramp up in difficulty. There is an end, so there is a final boss of sorts. So it's not like an endless game.
Right.
It's just one that changes every time you play it. How you actually progress. There's daily challenges, as are kind of common in this, in the roguelite style
Yeah.
of game.
Right.
That are just like, hey, you have no upgrades. You play with these 2 weapons. Have fun. And they'll give you like mines and a shield, which means all of a sudden you've got to play extremely defensively.
Right.
Or
That's interesting.
or the next day they'll give you like, hey, here's this really really souped up laser, but you have no health this round. Like,
Whoa.
Oh,
yeah, it's really interesting the way they do it, and this is one of those games that I've kind of championed for a little while because I feel like most people don't even know it exists.
Right.
So yeah, for everybody, I'm gonna say it again. It's Steriden Binary Stars. Look it up. It's all pixel graphics with kind of rock music going in the background. It looks like a modern version of an old school shoot 'em up with a lot of really really nice touches, and I definitely recommend this game.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned that there are melee weapons because, like, with these kind of games, I would think that it's the the a standard technique is to try to keep a considerable distance, but the fact that you have melee weapons, I mean, you're risking a lot to get hit, but to be able to pull off amazing attacks. I mean, that's pretty awesome. It adds another dimension to this sort of game.
Yeah, and the melee weapons kind of come in the form of, I mentioned a giant like circular saw blade. They
Right.
also have a
Yeah.
big drill or a big sword,
Oh,
and yeah, it's one of the weapons is actually like I've never gotten it in game outside of one of the daily challenges, but it's kind of a lightsaber. Like it acts exactly like a lightsaber. It actually deflects
Hmm.
shots
that's pretty
back
cool.
at
Oh,
them.
wow.
Yeah, like it's there's a lot to this game. Like it's very fun. That I'm trying to come up with another word to say, but it just is. It's a really fun game.
Hmm.
You can tell that they put a lot of thought into the how the genre works and what they could change with it, and I think it's worked out really in their favor.
Yeah, that's good stuff. Yeah, I mean, I think I'll add it to my backlog. On this, it seems like a pretty interesting and I mean the fact that there are different levels. I mean, it's not just the same over and over. I mean, or they're more procedurally generated, or excuse me, randomly generated. That's cool.
Yeah,
But
and
yeah,
Right.
it's not like they're throwing random enemies at you either. You can kind of see that they like certain wave types, like so they'll throw a bunch of shield guys at you and then put a bunch of laser guys behind them. But
Oh, right,
ooh,
right.
there's little changes in the formation of those guys, and what came before that and what came after that changes. So it's like they're taking kind of these set pieces and putting them together in different ways.
Right.
Um, and then
interesting.
also adding some random elements to the stages. Like once in a while, you'll get in a stage that has these asteroids flying by, and the asteroids can hit you or your enemies. They just kind of wreak havoc on everything. Um,
Right. Oh,
there's like secret bosses. There's unlockable ships that all have different powers and different weapon types and such. It's better than anybody knows, and that's one I really wanted to harp on that a little bit.
right. Oh, sounds awesome. Do you happen to recall the price?
Yeah, it's $12.99.
Oh,
Whoa,
nice.
Yeah.
that's a good deal.
Yeah, so it's not that expensive. I haven't seen it go on sale at all, but honestly, for that price, I've probably put over 20 hours in it pretty easy. So I do think you're getting a pretty good value on that.
Nice.
Good stuff.
All right, Kevin, last one.
Last one. Here we go. So, my last pick is Sonic Mania. Yes. Yeah, it is a it's one of those games that people have been waiting to play for a while. Personally for me, I'm a big Sonic fan since well I played two, then one, then three, so different trajectory. But I just remember back in those days playing the iconic stages like Emerald Hill, and the chemical plant zone, and even one of my favorites, the oil plant zone, where the music is just pretty catchy, memorable. And then I think his name is Christian Whitehead. He was able to uh, you know pretty much bring back, pretty much teach an old dog new tricks and bring back all these like a combination of these levels and even new ones too, and put into this package called Sonic
Hmm.
Mania. You're able to play with Sonic the Blue Hedgehog, who can run pretty fast, and you got Miles Tails Prower, or and you also have Knuckles, and yeah. Oh, right. It's it's a lot of fun. Blazing 2D side-scrolling adventure. It's just uh, yeah, it's amazing. I think it's just one of those games that it really hits on nostalgia really hard in a good way. And um, yeah, have you guys played it?
I have not, but I agree with you that it's a return to form for Sonic. It's been so long since we had a classic, regular, no gimmicks, uh, just what works, fast-paced Sonic game. And from what I hear by friends and by reviewers, this game really knocked it out of the park.
Yeah, it really did, and I did play it. I am not the biggest Sonic fan in the world. I was definitely a Super Nintendo kid instead of a
Hmm.
Genesis kid, so all of my Sonic experience was playing it in like store demos or now after the fact, right?
Hmm.
And going back and playing those games, I always kind of got the feeling they felt kind of sticky to me. Like
Mm.
it takes a little bit to pick up speed. So if you don't know the optimal route through the courses, which are kind of like a roller coaster, right?
Right.
It can feel kind of like it's resisting your movement a little bit.
No, I see what you mean.
And
Yeah.
I never really that rubbed me the wrong way for quite a while actually. I could enjoy the games, and I'm not I wouldn't trash them or anything. I wasn't I wasn't overly negative on them. It just wasn't my favorite thing in the world. Now, when this game came to Switch, it looked so cool. Like they were doing so much with it that I did pick it up. And honestly, playing this game has given me much more appreciation for the series as a whole. Um, to the point that I kind of see what they're doing with the level designs, which I don't even know how they like. I don't know how they came up with these levels. Like these levels are insane.
Yeah,
They
it's
they
great.
they don't make much sense. You've got multiple heights in the level. You transition very quickly from running to the right to running to the left, and you're going all around and all the way. All of a sudden, you end up at the end, and you do it through skill. Like you've made a lot of choices in there, and you've done a lot of little platforming
Hmm.
sections. So it's not like an autoplay thing, but just the way it's laid out and try to figure out your way through each level. It excites. It's more exciting to me now than it ever was before. So
Hmm.
I have trouble telling whether that's the magic of this game in particular, or if I'm just if I'm older, a little more appreciative of it. But I had a great time with this game, like a surprisingly good time with this game.
That's awesome, man. I mean, I can kind of see where you're coming from with how you felt about the series before. It's definitely it's definitely a different kind of feel. Just with the being able to go really fast, and then at times where you feel like it's kind of sticky, where you know you do want to find the most optimal path. And I guess there's somewhat of a level of stress in terms of you want to. I think in the back of your mind, you're like, you want to have a really good time, but at the same time, you want to make sure that you're not trying to, you're trying to find the best path without dying and of course, there's the boss battles where, you're trying to recognize the patterns and all that. So, but, you know, I do want to mention that there is a Plus edition coming out. I think it's later this month. They add two new characters. Their names are Mighty and Ray, and they're wonderful additions to the already awesome game that it is. And I
Right.
think for us, if we own Sonic Mania, I think we just have to pay $5 to get the revised version of Sonic Mania, and then I think for those who don't have it, I think it's either 25 or $30, but I think it's still a great deal, and highly recommended.
Yeah,
Nice,
and
nice. I think it's cool that we're finally at a point where there's sort of parts of Sonic. Now we have the classic good games, and Sega's still trying things with
Yeah.
different 3D games, you know. But
Oh
who
man,
knows?
yeah.
Maybe one day they're gonna hit something that's different enough and that's good. So it's good that they're finally giving us a good Sonic game.
Yeah, I don't know about Sonic 2006 on the Xbox, but Sonic Adventure 1 and 2 were pretty good. For me, I mean that was I think it was a decent 3D adventure game, but
Yeah.
yeah, they're obviously
I
notable ones.
I played the heck out of Sonic Adventure 2 Battle
Yeah,
on
yeah,
GameCube. I played that a lot.
really
So
good. Yeah.
I no, it's been a good little while since I did, so I can't really comment on whether I think that's a good game or not. But
Mm.
I played a lot of it. Like it sunk a lot of time. But yeah, I think this is kind of a triumphant return to form by actually some students. So this
Right.
is
Mhm.
kind of some very new developers making a Sonic game and making a really good one.
Yeah.
And every story like that, I want to support them, because I think getting new developers out and these small teams doing really cool things that tug on nostalgia a little bit. I think it's great, and it's just a good story overall because it got really well received.
Yes.
Yeah, it's by like I said before, his name is Christian Whitehead. He's a game developer and obviously a huge fan of the series. So you know, the fact that the fact that a fan became a game developer slash designer and was able to make this game, it's incredible. I think it's a really good story, a really good success story. So you know, more power to him and more power to the industry. We need more people like him, and um, you know, just be able to. I mean, and that really is a example of, you know, uh, passion, what passion can do, and it's I think it's really evident in Sonic Mania, and yeah, for those who are, even if you're not the biggest Sonic fan, I highly recommend getting this game for sure. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, definitely. All right, Sergio, last one.
Last one, it's a game called BVVVVV or six V's.
What what does that mean? What does that name mean? I don't.
It's the shape of spikes in like
Okay.
classic games, like Mega Man games. Like
Nice.
Right.
if you do a lot of V's together, it looks like spikes along the ground. I think that's exactly what they were trying to go for.
Is that how you say it though? You just have to say VVVVV, or it's just like, I mean,
I
is
think so. I jokingly call it V.
there we go.
Yeah. But has either of you played or seen this game?
So I played a very little bit on I got it real cheap on Steam a long time ago. Actually, I may have gotten it as part of one of the Humble bundles. And I played a little bit
Oh,
of
right.
it and then dropped it for other things and never went back. So vaguely familiar, but really not.
I've watched
Okay,
some game
gotcha.
footage of it, just on YouTube, and it is pretty interesting, and it looks I mean, it looks pretty awesome. So I just been watching it. Haven't really played it, to be honest.
Cool. So it's kind of a platformer in a way, but you don't really jump.
Right.
You only switch from the bottom of the screen to the top. Basically, you reverse the gravity, and that's how you can jump in a way from side to side.
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
you move around. It's very, very retro. Even like 8-bit and beyond. It's really sharp but also clean and crisp looking, and the music is awesome. It's 8-bit music, really
Nice.
well remixed, and it's very challenging. It's not the longest game. If you want to beat it in one sitting, you can probably do so, maybe 4 to 6 hours. If you want to collect these little items called trinkets, which are the biggest challenge in the game, that could probably extend your playtime to about 10 hours.
Mm.
But it's so much fun. You're gonna die a lot. The cool thing is that there's a lot of checkpoints throughout the level. So as soon as you die, even on the same screen, you just right back on the last checkpoint, and that's sort of the charm of the game. You're gonna be retrying things many times, but it never gets to the point when it's boring. It encourages you to keep trying until you succeed.
Yeah, the art style is really cool on it too. Like it's kind of this Technicolor looking thing. It goes with the music really well. It's definitely got its own little unique style to it that it does draw you in.
Right.
Hmm.
Right, and there's different areas of this world in the game, and the mechanics change a lot actually. Even though you're just reversing the gravity, sometimes you might flip on the other side of the screen, sometimes you don't. So they really change it up, and it makes it a lot of fun. This game, I believe it originally came out on the 3DS, and it's been around on a couple of other systems, and it came out on the Switch earlier this year. So definitely a must play on it.
Yeah, same question. Do you know the price on it by chance?
I believe it might be $8.
Whoa.
Yeah, I remember being like quite cheap
It's
for
pretty cheap.
for a really highly recommended game.
Yeah, probably, like I said, it's a bit on the short side in a way, but it's definitely worth the price and it's a lot of fun.
Is there a story? I don't know if you mentioned it before, but is there a story behind VVVVV? Like,
Right, and that's part of the name actually because there's six main characters and they each start with a V.
no.
Right. It's a little bit of a generic story. You're the captain of a ship and something goes wrong and you lose your crew, so you have to find them, and that's how the gravity gets all messed up and fun things happen.
Good stuff.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's definitely it's a good pick. One that I wouldn't have really even thought of. But yeah, I've heard amazing things about that game.
Definitely.
All right, so my last one, and
Here we go.
I'm gonna make up for the obscurity of Steriden by picking maybe the most obvious one I could have possibly put on this list. And I apologize, but I had to mention it just in case
Hmm.
somebody hasn't heard of this game or played this game. I'm gonna talk about Celeste.
Boom.
So yeah,
Nice.
so have you guys each played this? I think you have.
Absolutely. I finished the main story. I'm almost done with the B-sides, which we can talk about later. And yeah, it just, man, this is one of my favorite games on the Switch.
And I played a little bit of it. I guess in a way I wasn't ready for it, or I wasn't really ready to commit because I can tell it's gonna be a really good game, and I really want to focus on it. So I haven't really played it just yet.
Yeah, that's
Hmm.
fair. So the game is $20. It is currently, if I'm making a top 5 list or something like that on the Switch, it is currently number 3 for me.
Whoa.
Only behind Breath of the Wild and Splatoon. Yes, above Mario Kart and Mario Odyssey.
What?
Oh,
Whoa,
Yeah,
that's a bold statement. Yeah.
I know, and
It's like
and
above Mario
I'm
Kart?
yeah, I'm gonna try to explain that, but I understand some people might think I'm crazy on it. So Splatoon is, or sorry, so I told you I'm the biggest shill for Splatoon, even when I'm not talking about it.
It's like it's
Uh,
ingrained in your mind. It's like, oh,
yeah, it's
Splatoon.
it's right there. No, so Celeste is it's another 2D platformer. Very very different style than something like Rayman. So it's more of a room based challenge 2D platformer if you've ever played one of those.
mhm.
Uh, the only really good example, and I'm cringing as I say it, the only really good example I have of a similar game is Super Meat Boy. Uh,
Oh, yes.
Yeah, yep.
I
and
played that before.
a lot of people hold that game in really high regard. It's not one of my favorites at all. So
Oh,
Mm.
I don't I don't think I don't know exactly how well this compares to it, but the format is similar, or maybe even the format of like a if you think back into like Super Mario Maker, some of the really hard levels on Mario Maker were just
Right.
a few rooms in,
yes.
but very very hard. That's kind of what Celeste is.
Yeah, it's
So
definitely a really challenging game.
yeah,
Not for the lighthearted, but well, it is easy to get into in terms of just being able to master some of the or learning how to do the dash mechanic and jumping and all that. But there are some really um, difficult challenges along the way. So one of the things I love about the game is the music. Oh my gosh! Like even at work, I would just there's this one remix in the hotel level. It's like it
oh
goes like
man.
bum, bum, ba, bum, 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 ba, da, bum, jum, ba, da, ba, bum, bum. And I just like it's just like in my mind or in my brain. I just it's just I like the fact that it's just it's jazzy, it's upbeat, it's not too poppy. Well, maybe in certain songs, but I mean it's just it hits the right notes. And man, I there are just days where I would just literally have my Spotify playlist and just have just a excuse me, Celeste remix song. So
Yeah,
Nice.
so I want to give a little bit of shout out, and I'm hoping I don't butcher her name. The composer, arranger, uh, artist behind the music, his name is Lena Rain.
mm,
She's actually on, I think on Bandcamp and such, and she has a lot of stuff out there. She did a phenomenal job,
oh,
like a
absolutely, absolutely.
phenomenal job on the soundtrack of this game. The last story level is actually my phone ringtone right now.
Is it? Wow, that's pretty
Oh,
good.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I mean, so just talking about the game, I think you kind of got the gist. It's another pixelated game, but it's done in a really pretty way. Like they've done a lot of work with the pixel art, so it doesn't look like it's one of those games that doesn't look like they went pixel art because it's cheap or easy.
Mm,
They chose that intentionally, and you can
right.
tell that they've conveyed a lot with it, and I appreciate that.
definitely.
But
Yeah.
it is a very challenging 2D platformer with extremely simple controls. You really only have a movement, a jump, and a dash,
Right.
and a one control for climbing up a wall, and an extremely touching story.
Oh
So
yeah. Hmm.
if you kind of put those two, this is the only instance I can think of a platformer game story justifying the difficulty of the game. Um,
Yeah,
and
no, I agree. It's
and the reason I say that is the story of this game is this: you play as the main character is dealing with feelings that a lot of people deal with. It's almost it's kind of
relatable.
trending
Yeah,
into depression
yeah.
almost. So she sets off to climb this mountain, and she's not a mountain climber. She doesn't have any skills. In fact, the first person you talk to that you're gonna do this laughs at you actually in the game,
Yeah.
um, in a in a really annoying way. But
Yeah.
then she sets off to do it because she wants. She's looking for meaning in her life almost. And the way they convey that is just it's beautiful. It's really really well done, because you feel her struggle. And I mean, you go through a lot of crazy areas, so it's not extremely narrative driven, but it all works. Because
Yeah.
you feel her struggling with this, and at times actually struggling with a mirror image of herself that's attacking her. You feel the struggle on this, and it almost, at least with me, it motivated me to want to beat the game. It motivated me to want to get her through the level, and
Hmm.
that ultimately that is why I think so highly of this game. Not only because the mechanics are like almost perfect, the level design is great, the music is great, the graphics are great, but the way they've tied in the story to the gameplay is amazing. It's really really well done.
And just to add on to what you're saying, besides just the the sound game mechanics, I mean, the way that the backgrounds just interplay with the human emotions of the character as you're trying to climb up that mountain and going through the levels. Like, I think it's just very well done. It's relatable. For all of us, we have our own. Um, we have different purposes to live, and why we choose to go on certain paths. And I think that it just hits a lot of notes, and I think it hits home. And like you mentioned, how the main character has her darker mirror side, or just mirror image of herself. And I mean, it's literally like, I think it's a beautiful struggle of how we try to deal with life. And it's just a visual representation of us living day to day and trying to take it step by step and conquer life's challenges. I don't know, that's what I got from the game. It's, and once you know get to the when you get to the mountain, the top of the mountain, you can just feel like, wow, like I've done so much. And going through all these challenges, and but it never stops there. And I think Celeste is just a good representation of interchanging between platforming and how we go through life. So I think that's
Yeah.
Nice.
So the main story itself, it's it's a handful of levels with common deaths and retries and such. It'll probably take, depending on how skilled you are, it'll probably take between 5 and 12 hours
hmm
to complete the main story. After that, if you satisfy certain requirements, you unlock harder versions of all the levels. And when I
right.
say harder, I mean like much harder versions. Um, and when you satisfy the requirements on all those, you unlock even harder versions of all the levels again.
Boom.
So
Right.
when it's it's one of those games that you feel like, oh man, I just beat it. Oh wait, there's a ton of other stuff to do. I think I did get not exactly 100% completion, because one of the final challenges, if you're just an insane person, is to run through every level without a single death.
Oh my
That's
gosh, that is
that's
insane.
almost unthinkable to me. I didn't feel like spending the time to do that.
Right. Right.
Um, or even attempt to. I'm not sure I'd be able to.
Right.
But I beat all the levels, and my final save file, I think, was around 40 hours.
Hmm.
Um, just with playing, and it's the same type of retry cycle as Sergio was mentioning with VVVVVV. Everybody has their own way of saying that game. Whereas you die, and then it just puts you right back at the beginning of the room, like instantly. The music doesn't cut out. It doesn't go through a loading screen or anything like that. So you feel like the game is consistently pushing you forward. I've made the point a couple times in just conversations that one of the first things the game tells you, there's a little screen right after the lady laughs at you. Right after that, it shows you this splash screen, and it just pops the words up, "You can do this." And if you take that, it feels like the entire game is trying to tell you, "Hey, you can do this." Like, so one of the ways it really differs from something like Super Meat Boy. Super Meat Boy almost takes pleasure in the fact that it's hard, right? So it almost like it shows you where you've died all the times, and you can see all that, and it can fairly easily feel like the game is making fun of you, you know?
Right.
This game is the complete 100% opposite of that. The game is not making fun of you. It does keep a death counter that you can check at the very end. It's not actually used for anything. It doesn't show up on your screen all the time. There's no timer or anything like that. It feels like the creators of the game want you to beat the game, like, and they applaud you for doing it. The reward for doing it is amazing. The last level of the story is probably the best end game I've played, or it's a top 5 end game sequence for me, easy, ever. It's an extremely satisfying game. The other thing I want to touch on is the difficulty. So we keep saying how hard the game is. That's a very true statement. The game is very hard. But if you're just the type that the game is, you're going to be shy about the difficulty, you're going to be scared away from it, you don't really like being challenged in that way, that makes sense. The developers have done something really interesting with this game that I've never really seen done this well, especially in a platformer, in that they've added these assists to the game that you can turn on whichever ones you want. You can turn them all on, you can turn on a selection of them, whatever. And they change the mechanics of the game to make it easier for you. So one of the assists is basically you get multiple dashes in the air versus only having one. You can turn that to you get 2 dashes, or you can turn that into you can dash as many times as you want and literally fly through every stage.
Right.
One of my favorite ones is you can adjust the game speed. So if it's just a little bit too fast for you, you can turn it down from 100% all the way to 50%. So the game is actually running at half speed, and it gives you a lot more time to make the decisions and make the movements and such. You can turn on invincibility so that the environmental hazards like spikes and such don't kill you.
Right, yeah.
So if you turn all those things on, yeah, you can literally fly through every level like a god, right? If you turn on, let's say, hey, this level is just slightly too hard for me, I'm going to bump the speed down to 90% and try it like that. You can do that. I mean, the option's there. It doesn't really punish you in any tangible way at all for doing it. I think it does tell you, hey, this game was balanced to be a hard game, so try it. But they put these really smart options in there that, like I said, everything about the game tells me that the designers made it in a way that they want you to beat the game. They want you to play it. They want you to experience it. And seeing that level of passion from them, and it's a small studio, it's just a few people, seeing that level of passion about their game and about the player and this story that they're trying to tell through a very hard game, I can't remember another experience like this. Not really.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. It's, the fact that they have that assist mode, it really shows how considerate the designers are and how accessible they want the game to be, from, the veteran platformers to the ones who, do want to engage more in the story and not have to worry about how hard a game is. So I think this is great, and it's a very good lesson and a good example of what good game design should be. And like you said, it's a small studio. Like, that just tells me that, anybody can do that. Like, or I mean, small studios, like anybody who can make those games can make it that accessible, and Celeste is no exception. Yeah, so
Yeah, every person that I know that's played the game has loved it, and they
hmm
highly recommend it. I mean, that alone speaks for the game, I think.
awesome. Yeah, absolutely. It's
Yeah, the only real negative comment that I've actually seen from people is, "Hey, this game is too hard for me," and I
mm,
that's why I'm trying to be as clear as I can on the difficulty settings, because like
Right.
I almost feel like their personal pride, they don't want to turn them on, but the settings are so mild, like you can turn it on in such a minor way that it doesn't necessarily take away from the difficulty of the game or the accomplishment
Right.
for doing it. It makes it slightly more manageable. Um,
hmm
but I mean, if you're somebody like me that really loves a challenge, man, there's a lot of challenge here. There's a few levels on the last set that I probably had about 700 deaths on.
oh
Um,
yeah.
and and that's actually a decent number. Like, I'm actually fairly proud about that. Like, so it's I think over the main game, and the cool thing is, like, so when you start playing the game, you start the first level, and the first level feels pretty hard, and then the second level feels pretty hard, and then the third level feels, oh my god, like really hard, right? um but then you play through the game, and even in the first playthrough, right, even just the single first set of stages, and you play through to the end game, if you go back to the first level, it feels easy, like super easy when you go back to it. Like, the game has taught you, and it's not that it's taught you any special mechanics or tricks or anything to get through it. No, it's just literally you have learned how to deal with this game.
hmm
Hmm.
And that, and a bunch of other things just really scream really good game design to me. Like, they've done a lot to make this game an extremely high quality, and currently it's sitting as my 2018 game of the year. Now
Whoa.
we'll see some games that are coming down the pipe that may dethrone that.
Right.
But it's definitely going to be up there. It's definitely going to be one that I think back on really fondly, and I definitely encourage everybody to at least take a look. I think I said it's $20. So, like most of the games on this list, it's not really going to break your bank for a game that I think is something extremely special.
Right.
Yeah, it's just and I'm in the same boat as you. Like I do like a good challenge, and I can remember at the very last level where I would just die on this one thing I just cannot figure out, and then I just kept going and just try to figure out, okay, how do I dash jump to this place and then do this or that. It's just I think it just pisses you just enough to make you keep going and not feel that discouraged when you're trying to overcome a challenge. So I think it's a good level of challenge, or a good level of difficulty. Although there are certain parts where it's like, oh man, what do I do? But yeah, I highly recommend as well, and it is definitely one of my favorite games up there with the Nintendo Switch. So
Cool. Well, that's the end of our list. So we did it. There's
yeah,
nine games to go by. So let us
boom.
know when you finish those, and we'll give you 9 more. Um,
There we go.
but I think that's actually going to wrap us up this week.
hmm
So again, we are the Nintendo Jump Podcast. We are on Twitter at Nintendo Jump. We are also on Instagram. Kevin, what's the address?
It is the exact Nintendo Jump.
There you go. We're also on YouTube, where we are posting copies of every show
There we
at
go.
Nintendo Jump Podcast.
hmm
And you can follow us on any one of those or your favorite podcast app. We are slowly getting out to all the sources that we can think. So definitely
hmm
give us a follow, give us a like, and let us know any comments that you have on the show, anything you'd like for us to talk about in the future. We will definitely try to make that happen. I want to remind everybody we're about 1 week away from Octopath Traveler. Yes, I am
Oh,
excited.
yes, me
Yes.
too. Oh man.
So I'm sure that'll shape my gaming life for a little bit going
Yeah.
Right.
forward.
Oh man. It's
But other than that, that is it. So for Kevin and Sergio and Daryl, we really appreciate you listening to this. Let us know if there's anything you want to hear us talk about. Otherwise, we will see you next week.
Goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye, and thank you so much, guys.